postseason kicks off with conference championships starting this weekend. Which storyline should you know heading into the Big 12's, ACCs, and every other conference? Well, let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's going on, wrestling fans? My name's Josiah, and welcome to the Fanco Wrestling Show, the weekly wrestling show right here on the Fanco Wrestling YouTube channel. And tonight is another big, exciting show because conference championships, that's right, you heard me at the start, are starting up this weekend. This weekend, we have a lot of exciting action, and I'll get to what exciting action we have and how exactly you can watch every single conference championship, because I know it can be very difficult figuring out how to watch ACCs, how to watch Big Tens, how to watch all of these things going on. So I'm going to explain that to you in this video. So welcome to the show and happy spring. I've been enjoying this beautiful, beautiful weather in North Carolina. Over the weekend, you may have missed, but we had a couple final duels of the season. Greg Kirkfleet is back. Peyton Omania has defeated Kanan Storr over the weekend as well. And there have been plenty of other wrestling headlines. In case you missed any of those, of course, you know where to find them right on the Fanco Wrestling YouTube channel. Do the wrestling headlines every single Monday. And unfortunately, this week in the Fanco Wrestling Show, we do have to start out with some unfortunate news. And that's news that broke just before the filming and the recording of this show, going live right now, just like I do every Wednesday night. But Stefan Mitchich is out for the season. Stefan Mitchich will not be wrestling in this postseason. So he hasn't wrestled this year, and we weren't sure what exactly was going to happen with Stefan Mitchich. But now we know officially from Michigan. They released a statement via Twitter, and they said, unfortunately, due to an injury in timing, Stefan Mitchich will not compete at the 2021 Big Ten and NCAA championships. To me, this is just such unfortunate news. You know, I joke a lot of times about like Mitchich having all these years of eligibility, and you know he just gets so many years of eligibility because of his Olympic red shirts, because of his other red shirts, medical red shirts, now with his free year, and gets just so many shots at a title. You know, which isn't always necessarily true because he had those years that he took off due to legitimate reasons, but it's unfortunate that he's not going to get his shot at a title this year. I hope that we do see him come back for another year, and I'll get to what the implications are really for Michigan this year. But, you know, Mitchich, he's a three-time All-American. He plays fourth redshirt freshman year, second, and then third in his recent attempt. Made his first year, he had rough losses to Nato and Corey Clark. Then, following year, he made the finals against Seth Gross. And then the only guy in his way in the previous year was Soriano, who he'd beat earlier in the year. So, you know, it's sad to see that Mitchich isn't going to be able to get his shot this year. Although he had a solid career up to this point, and I wish him the best of luck going into the Olympics and further on as he competes for his country. Now, as far as how this affects the team race, it affects the team race in a couple of different ways. So, one of the ways is that, obviously, with Mitchich out, who's going to fill in for 33? Well, we've got a bit of a glimpse of that over the last couple of weeks as Jack Medley entered the lineup at 125 and Ragusin bumped up to 133. And I don't necessarily know that, at first I wasn't sure. Maybe there was something that happened with Ragusin. He just needed to drop back down. But he stayed there for the last couple of weeks, and because of that, I think that's how Michigan thinks they have a best shot to win a Big Ten championship and an NCAA championship. And with the team that they have this year, it's completely possible. And with that being said, even though Ragusin may do better individually at 125 for the team, he may be taking one for the team this postseason and saying this is something that can actually give us a legitimate shot at a title. And it's true that it can give them a shot. It gives them a better shot. You know, with Mitchich being at 33 and Ragusin at 25, that's like a 15, 20-point swing compared to kind of where they were at the beginning of the year. But, you know, that's where we are now. We'll see where that happens. And other news before we get into our first segment of how to watch the conference championship starting this weekend, Ncaa actually released an article today on Wednesday, and it said that NCAA is allowing 25% capacity at all the winter championships. They were getting this from a press release, and later the article was rescinded. It was taken back, which makes me wonder what that was about. Is the NCAA not allowing fans now? Or like, is there something else behind the scenes that we're not seeing? Of course there is, but what's going on there? Because they released 25% fans, and then they didn't rescind the fans. They just rescinded the article, is just to be clear. But it just makes me wonder, what exactly was going on there. And if we are going to get fans, I really hope that we do. And at the very least, please give tickets to family and close friends. Like, please, NCAA, allow fans in. We got that unfortunate news last year that we may have not had fans, or there weren't going to be fans. And then, of course, the championships were canceled, but it's just a crazy swing of events. So let's get into the big topics of the show. So in this segment, I'm going to tell you how to watch every single conference championship. It can be a big pain in the butt figuring out where to watch ACCs, where to watch Big Tens, where to watch EIWAs. How do you watch all these conference championships that you're going to watch? Well, I have done the legwork, and every single conference championship is down in the description below. You click that link, it'll take you right to where you need to go. Event hubs, which has the brackets and everything you need for that, as well as preliminary rounds, final rounds. So I have done all of the tough work for you. Just go down in the description, click those links, it'll take you right there to every single conference championship. And so let me give you some more details on exactly where each of these are so that you kind of understand them more, because even with just clicking that link, can be confusing. I get it. Trust me, I get it. I wish there was just one place everything was. I wish that was the case. But conference championships are split now over the next couple of weekends. EIWAs will be taking place, the first conference championship, on Friday. That will be happening on Flow Wrestling. The MAC will be happening on Friday and Saturday, February 26th and 27th. The ACC, Pac-12s, and SOCONs are this upcoming Sunday, February 28th. Big Tens and Big 12s will be on March 6th and March 7th. So those are the last two, Big 12s and Big 10. So how do you watch each of these? ACCs are starting off airing on the ACC Network Extra, which is online, and then the finals will be on the ACC Network on February 28th at 7 o'clock p.m., and they're taking place at NC State. Unfortunately, there are no fans there. There are no fans allowed at actually any of these events, I believe, except for Big 12, is from what I've done for my research. Max said that maybe they were going to allow fans, but then rescinded that. Actually, today was also news. The Big Tens, for the first time ever, they're airing every single round on the Big Ten Network. You can watch it on Big Ten Network, Big Ten Network Plus, Fox Sports Go app, which is how I watch it. You can watch that with a cable provider. I'll kind of get into what is technically free, quote-unquote free, and what is paid, what is cable. I'll get into that too. Big Ten taking place in State College, March 6th and 7th on Big Ten Network. Big 12's ESPN Plus is where you will want to go, taking place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. EIWAs, that's, like I said, on Flow Wrestling, the only event on Flow Wrestling postseason this postseason. MAC will be on Ryder's website as well as ESPN Plus, but only certain times. The replay, I think, will be on there, but on Ryder's website. It is taking place at Ryder this year, this upcoming weekend. Pac-12s, you can watch on Pac-12 Now. That is a totally free event to watch. Log into the Pac-12 app. You can watch Pac-12's whole weekend, or on the Oregon State website. That's another way to watch it. Again, like I said, links down in the description below. And then SoCons are on ESPN Plus. So, if you want to watch EIWAs, you got to pay for Flow Wrestling. That's the only way to watch it. If you want to watch Pac-12s, it's free. Luckily for all fans, Ryder's site and the MAC, that's a free thing. And then cable, if you have cable, you're going to be able to watch ACC's Big Ten Network, ESPN Plus. ESPN Plus, you do have to pay for some subscription, but just to let you know where all of that is. And as you click the links, those will take you exactly to where you need to go. And I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope this segment was helpful for you to watch conference championships. Now let's get into a fun segment. So there are actually plenty of wrestlers who could win 5 conference championship titles. Now, nobody will win their 5th conference championship this weekend, but in upcoming years, it's actually totally possible that there could be a 5-time conference champion. So there's actually one from every single conference that could happen. I'm going to explain to you who those are and how this could happen. So first, let me explain to you how this works. So this year is a free year of eligibility. The NCAA has deemed that anybody wrestling this year will get a free year of eligibility, regardless of whether you actually wrestle or not, as long as you're enrolled in your university. So, for example, a true freshman last year, let's take like an Aaron Brooks, for example, who won Big Tens last year. In 2020, he was a true freshman, won Big Tens. This year, 2021, his sophomore year is what it would be, is technically a free year. So it counts towards your record and your rankings and all that, but your eligibility, it doesn't count towards that. In 2022, his junior year, that would be his 3rd year. His senior year, 2023, and then 2024, which I'm deeming the COVID redshirt year, I guess, is, I don't know what they want to call it, if there has even been a name yet, but if somebody won it as a true freshman, they would then have that path towards 5 titles. What about somebody who is a senior this year, though? So that gets a little bit trickier, not as much, and there are plenty of tricky situations, and I'll get to who these guys are in just a second. Aaron Brooks is one of the guys I just mentioned, but like a Hayden Hidley, senior, 3-time ACC champ, won it as a freshman, 2017, wrestled his redshirt freshman, or took a redshirt year in 2017, redshirted, and actually wrestled, and then in 2018, redshirt freshman year, won his first title. 2019 was a sophomore and won his 2nd title. 2020, that's when he won his 3rd title last year. This year, he is eligible. He can win his 4th SOCON title, and then he still has 1 year of eligibility left. Now, just because these guys have the possibility of winning 5 titles doesn't mean they will, and it also doesn't mean that they will definitely come back to wrestle every single year, because different universities are doing things different ways. Now, as far as some of these guys, the first guy I want to mention is Aaron Brooks. Now, Aaron Brooks won Big Tens last year at 184 pounds. And the thing, too, that kind of goes with Aaron Brooks that I want to mention here is, yes, there's Aaron Brooks, but also anybody who won it as a freshman last year. So anybody who was a true freshman last year or a redshirt freshman. Guys like Jacob Camach, who won the ACC, Shane Griffith, the Pac-12, David Carr, the Big 12. And then, if those guys continue to win out, they will be 5-time conference champions. Pretty cool. Pretty cool that could happen. Now, who else? Hidley, I mentioned him already. 3-time ACC champ. If he wins it this upcoming weekend, he will be a 4-time ACC champ. And his redshirt freshman year, I want to mention, that was an impressive year. He beat Mitch Finesilver of Duke, Taylor Romani also at the ACC championships. That was the same year that he ended up making the NCAA finals against Jason Nolf. And that proved to kind of be his heel at the national level was Jason Nolf, although he's very close to beating him. Now, Hidley right now is riding a 27-match win streak. His last loss was to Ryan Deacon, and we're hopefully going to see that match happen at the NCAAs. Can't wait for that to happen. In other conferences, we still have the Pac-12, SOCON, EIWA, a couple more. Anthony Valencia, 3-time Pac-12 champ at a couple different weight classes. Won at 74 and 65. Now, his situation is actually a little bit more difficult than some of those other situations because he had a redshirt year and a medical redshirt year. And there's even another crazy situation coming up with a guy who took an Olympic redshirt year but won it as a freshman. Maybe you know who that is. This would be, if he does win it this year and comes back, it would actually be his 7th year of eligibility. That's Anthony Valencia, the senior, this year. And he's seen the Pac-12 go through so many changes in his time. Not only has he changed weights, but he's seen Boise State in the Pac-12. He's seen Stanford possibly leaving and being dismantled at the end of the season. Little Rock then joining. Now, Anthony Valencia right now is undefeated on the year. He still is yet to All-American. This is potentially his year. Round of 12, round of 16 guy, and looking forward to it this year. Josh Heil in the SOCON is a 3-time SOCON champ, enters the SOCON right now as a second seed. The 3-time SOCON champ enters as a second seed, and that's mostly due to not wrestling the entire season against a couple of guys in the conference. But Heil's won it at 41 and 49, wrestling 49 this year. He'd be the first 4-time conference champion from Campbell University, and he would be the first 5-timer from the SOCON, which would be kind of crazy. His only loss this season right now is to Bryce Andonian of Virginia Tech, who, if you've been watching him, has been having a great year. Couple more guys I have for you from each conference that I like highlighting. I like highlighting these guys because these conference championships, maybe I don't always get the chance to talk about all these guys, especially in a year like this where we don't have big tournaments where we see a lot of these big upsets. But that's why I like talking about these guys in videos like this, really highlighting some of these guys that maybe you don't know about or maybe you forgot about or just really deserve to be highlighted for their work in their conference. Jordan Wood, a 3-time EIWA champion at heavyweight, one as a freshman of Lehigh. One as a freshman, made the round 12 that year. He did All-American. He's somebody who actually has All-American. And this is really the best year to win another conference championship with the Ivy Leagues out. With teams out, this is the year. I mean, this is the year for anybody to do something, honestly, is with all these teams out. It's the year to do it. Brock Mahler and Dayton Fix are the last two that could win 5. Now, these are the ones from my research that could win 5. Is there somebody else that I'm forgetting? But please drop a comment. But Brock Mahler, 2-time MAC champ at 149 pounds, the junior, won as a true freshman, won it last year. Who had a great win over the number 2 seed Brock Zackrell and is having an undefeated season so far. And then Dayton Fix, like I said, he's the Olympic redshirt last year, so he won it in his freshman year. Beat Montori Bridges in the 2019 finals. Won the Big 12 championships and then took a year off for his Olympic redshirt year. He had his free year of eligibility this year if he wins it, and then he has 3 years of eligibility remaining. So the thing I like about this is that it could be crazy, and it's something we're not going to ever see again, knock on wood. Hopefully, we're not ever going to see something like this happen again. But I'm looking forward to the record books, and 50, 60 years from now, when somebody asks me, like, what? There's a 5-time champion? Why was there only 1 or 2 5-time champions from within the NCAA? Like, that's crazy. 5-time conference champions or potentially 5-time NCAA champions. And then you get into the whole story of exactly what happened here with the free year of eligibility. It's awesome. I'm looking forward to these guys in the postseason. And next up is going to be exciting. Next up, you got to know these sensational storylines heading into the conference championships, whether it's the ACC, the SOCON, the Big 12s, the Big 10. You got to know these big storylines before this upcoming weekend of competition. And there is a lot. Like there's a lot to know as I go into this topic. That's why it is the main segment of the Fanco Wrestling Show in this week's podcast. And there's just so many storylines outside of the Big Ten. I talk about Big Ten a lot, and I have a lot more outside of the Big Ten here. So this segment is actually brought to you by channel member William DeHaas. And channel members support this channel, support this podcast by donating, actually giving their money every single month to help support this channel. But not only do they just give their money, they get exclusive behind-the-scenes content in return for that on Patreon and on YouTube, such as exclusive behind-the-scenes videos. Like I just dropped this video of me wrestling Michael Kemmer in high school. If you want to see that match, you can go ahead and check out my Patreon. And then channel supporters who, if you're a channel supporter now, go ahead and drop a channel emoji, an exclusive channel emoji that only Fanco channel members can get. The other cool thing that I will be sending out to my channel members on Patreon is this sweet new Fanco wrestling sticker that I just designed. They're going out right now. If you want to get one, you can join and get one of these as a part of the Fanco channel membership on Patreon. Appreciate the support, and let's get into the topics of ACCs. I'm going conference by conference, talking about every single storyline. 165 pounds is arguably the absolute toughest bracket. I mean, in my opinion, in the conference championships, just because, I mean, it is so darn loaded, and anything can happen here. Like, Jake Wanchel sits at the number 1 seed. Mekhi Lewis is the number 2 seed. So anytime you have a returning NCAA champion as a 2 seed, that's when you know the bracket is extremely tough. Jake Keating of Virginia is number 3, and Kennedy Monday of UNC is number 4. And we also have Bullard here, who's a 5 seed, who will be wrestling Kennedy Monday in the first round of ACCs. This is crazy. I can't believe this bracket. Wenzel is the defending ACC champ, although Mekhi Lewis won an ACC championship, not last year because that's when he took his Olympic redshirt year, but the year before that. He has wins. Wenzel has wins over Mekhi, over Monday, over Jake Keating. But Jake Keating and like Thomas Bullard, those are a couple guys just kind of on the outskirts that you should be on the lookout for here at 165 pounds in the ACC. Can't wait to see how that bracket turns out. The other thing going on in the ACC is 197 pounds. Another tough bracket with Dino Bonaccorsi, Giaiello. Nick Reenan this is the thing that's just kind of we figured out is that Nick Reenan now is wrestling 197 for NC State. Kind of strange because Isaac Trumbull's the one who's been on fire this season. He's the one who beat Nino Bonaccorsi outright. I mean, he got him at Turkey, got him at back, got some back points, but he did beat him. So I wonder why Nick Reenan's in here, but best of luck to him. I'm an NC State supporter. Living in Raleigh myself, enjoy supporting these North Carolina teams. And I just can't wait to see how they. But of course, I'm also supporting a Nino Bonaccorsi, who's a Whitfield guy, whereas from where I'm actually from is from Pennsylvania. And then the big team race here, the team race between NC State and Virginia Tech, and you throw a Pitt in there on the outskirts. NC State is looking for their 3rd straight ACC title, and this is going to be a tough year to get it with Virginia Tech, who just won the regular season title by winning the dual meet. Now, NC State has 4 number 1 guys: Tariq Wilson, they have Hayden Hiley, Daniel Bullard at 74, and Deontay Wilson. All those guys are number 1 seeds. Pitt has 3 number 1s, and Virginia Tech also has 3 number 1s. The biggest team race implications here are with Sam Latona versus Jacob Camach. If those two make the finals at 125, we saw fireworks. We saw sparks fly in the dual meet coming down to the last couple of seconds there, and that's a match I think could go either way. Hunter Bolin and Trent Hiley, they've wrestled close matches, close decisions, just like recently, and it's going to come down to that. If Latona and Bolin win, that's going to help their team out more than and may push Virginia Tech over the top. Let's move on to the Big Ten. Of course, Spencer Lee is a big storyline, looking for another title in the Big Ten, although he won't be a 4-time Big Ten champion because he's had a couple of rough years at the Big Ten with NATO, with Sebastian Rivera. But it'll be interesting to see who the number 2 guy is, with Cronin, Heinzelman, Eric Barnett, Pat McKee, Rayvon Foley, all fighting for that number 2 spot. But speaking of Sebastian Rivera, this is the biggest storyline in the Big Ten is 141. What happens at 141 with Sebastian Rivera, with Nick Lee, and with Jaden Ironman? All of these guys haven't wrestled yet, so I'm pumped to see what is going to happen. Last time we saw Nick Lee and Jaden Ironman wrestle in college was a couple of years ago, and each of them have just grown tremendously since then. So, I'm not basing anything off of that, but Ironman's a funky guy. Nick Lee is just a very technical guy. We've seen that from the way each of these guys have been wrestling this season. Ironman's not necessarily blowing anybody crazy out of the water, but Nick Lee is somebody who just scores, bonus. That's also kind of the Penn State way, but when these guys get into it, and then Sebastian Rivera, who has already upset crazy guys at the Big Ten championships, won Big Tens last couple of years. I mean, beating Spencer Lee was a huge storyline that year. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Ken Sirachi, we talked a little bit about 74. in the ACC, but with 74 in the Big Ten, Carter Sirachi has been gaining a lot of momentum here. Gaining a lot of momentum with beating the number 2 guy in the country back-to-back weeks with Massa beating, and then beating Caleb Romero of Ohio State. But I'm interested in seeing how far ahead Kemmer is from the crowd. Is Sirachi on Kemmer's level? Can he compete with him if he even makes the finals? Because obviously that's going to be a tough finals to make. This is a loaded weight at 74. Heavyweight, I'm pumped to see Stevenson and Mason Parris go at it finally again since last year's Big Ten championships. And the team race here that will come down to it is Penn State and Iowa. But throw in a Michigan, throw in a Nebraska. With unfortunately Stefan Mitchich out from Michigan, they're shifting their lineup a little bit, and we'll see if that ends up paying off for Michigan. I still think that they're in contention. They lost to Penn State. They had a good showing against them in the duel, but tournaments are different than duels. They didn't get to wrestle. I don't think they were able to wrestle Nebraska or Iowa this year. And so that was unfortunate. But they're all coming head-to-head in the Big Ten championships. And we saw Iowa and Penn State share the Big Ten trophy in the regular season. But what's going to happen when it comes to the postseason? As far as the Big 12, there are a couple more conferences. I know this is a big segment. We're only on the Big 12s, and we still have the EIWAs, the MACs, the SOCONs, and these are storylines. Don't leave just because the Big 10's over. The Big 10's very exciting, but there's so much going on in the rest of college wrestling that you should pay attention to. Like that clip I just showed there, Buchanan beating Noah Adams. He beat him in back-to-back weeks and will be wrestling again at the Big 12 championships. Depending, that's still a tough bracket at 197 with AJ Ferrari of Okie State, Tanner Sloane of South Dakota State, and Jake Woodley of Oklahoma. This is one of the other, I think, most stacked brackets in the conference championships. Big 12s, you got Buchanan, who only has his losses outside of the Big 12s, so he is the clear kind of number 1 at the weight. Noah Adams, who was the clear number 1 heading into this season, had a great record just coming into this season, wins this season over Ferrari, Woodley, and is the reigning Big 12 champion. So he's going to want to come in and take that. Tanner Sloane is an undefeated wrestler, I believe maybe the only undefeated wrestler here, who had his last loss to Noah Adams at last year's Big 12 championships. And then a couple other things here, in the Big 12s. Of course, Okie State is going to be looking for another title, looking for their 9th straight title. And there's another team, there are actually a couple other teams coming up that are looking for, there's one team that's looking for one more title than Okie State in the MAC. Do you know who it is? Bulu Allen's looking good, looking for his 2nd title. Fix looking for his 2nd title. And then with Okie State also, guys that are going to have to help them. Master Giovanni, he's going to have to help Plot, Ferrari, in order for Okie State to win this with a young team. Brody Teskey is another young guy, not from Okie State, but who I'm interested to see him wrestle at 25, wrestle against Giovanni again. Can he win that? It'll be good for him after transferring out from Penn State, transferring into the Big 12, see how he's going to be able to wrestle. And then Demas is looking to renew his 2019 title. He lost last year. He's got to find a way to beat Parker. That's who his heel has been in the last couple of seasons. Can he beat him this year? And the EIWA, big EIWA implications. Now, unfortunately, no Ivy Leagues. We don't have the Cornells, we don't have the Harvards, but there's still a lot of other things going on. Also, F&M not wrestling. And although none of these teams are coming to wrestle in the postseason, there is one team that is coming back. I know I've been hyping up the MAC so much. You got to stick around for that. Navy is seeking their first EIWA title since the 90s. Since 1990, I believe, is the last time they won an EIWA title, because Lehigh and Cornell have been going back and forth for the last 20 years. The last team to actually win the EIWA that wasn't Cornell or Lehigh was Harvard back in 2001. So that's kind of crazy. Now, Lehigh is seeking their 4th straight title, so don't give it to Navy right away. Although with a new coaching staff and having a great dual meet season, beating Lehigh in the duel, Lehigh is seeking their 4th straight title, and it's going to be a tough team race. Lehigh has 4 number 1s with Jordan Wood, Jacobson, Hines, and Lane. Navy has only 1 number 1 with Cody Tribus at 141, but their other talent, they've just got some hard-nosed talent. That's why you've seen a lot of their duels this year. They haven't necessarily won by crazy margins, but they're just winning matches. They're grinding it out, and I wanted to see them grind it out and win an EIWA title, but Lehigh has a lot to say about that. Lockhaven is back in the MAC. They're back for the MAC, I should say. It's not like they were outside the MAC. It's not like they left the MAC, but they're back to wrestle at the MAC championships this year. After not wrestling this season, they will wrestle in the championships. Now, unfortunately for them, their guys pretty much have to all do phenomenally. They have to win the championships. They have to kind of take a spot from somebody else because none of them are really in the coaches' ranks just because none of them have really wrestled this year. They haven't wrestled this year. So it's awesome to see him back, but Keegan O'Toole, is somebody on Mizzou who's looking to remain undefeated going into the NCAA championships. And Mizzou is a team that is seeking their 10th straight. So Okie State is seeking their 9th straight. NC State is seeking their 3rd straight. Lehigh is seeking their 4th. And Mizzou is seeking their 10th straight title. They have 4 number 1s, similar to Lehigh, actually. So it's kind of funny how that works out. But they have 4 number 1s, and Brock Mahler, Keegan O'Toole, Alan Hart, and Matthew Schmidt. Now, Hart is seeking his 1st title, undefeated right now on the season. Mahler is after his 3rd title, and Keegan O'Toole is after his 1st title as a freshman. It's awesome to see how these true freshmen do, and coming into a season undefeated, in the NCAA, potentially undefeated if he wins his conference title. That'll be interesting to see where he ends up getting ranked at 65, which is a very tough weight, as I keep saying. I believe it's the hardest weight. If you listened to last week's Fanco Wrestling Show, I think 165 is the absolute toughest weight, most stacked weight, has the most depth in the entire NCAA. Now, Mizzou's not just going to, maybe they will walk over everybody, but Northern Illinois and Central Michigan are going to put up a fight. 2 more conferences with some big storylines. And I want to fill you in and make sure you know everything here, because once these conference championships are happening, whether you're watching on or listening live or following on Twitter or Flow or you're just waiting to come back to Fanco Wrestling for the following week, there's just so much going on. And so that's why I find it important to let you know exactly what you need to know. In the Pac-12, a couple different things here. So Arizona State is looking for their 4th title in 5 years. The 4th title in 5 years. The one team that has actually that took the 1 title away from them was Stanford. And unfortunately, this may be Stanford's last season, last Big 12 championships. Now, they won the title in 2019, but can a guy like Jaden Bass win his 1st title and maybe his only title as a Stanford wrestler? It sounds grim to say, but it's the reality of the situation. Shane Griffith is seeking his 2nd Pac-12 title, still seeking an NCAA title, has been riding a great wave since last season. Another tough 165-pound wrestler. Nathan Traxler, also of Stanford at heavyweight. Now, Vandermeer versus Teamer, with Stanford, with Arizona State, looking at that, those guys at 157 haven't wrestled, both Pac-12 champs. It'll be interesting to see how that match goes down. Other things going on in the Pac-12 with Arizona State. Colton Schultz and Trey Muniz are looking for their 1st ever titles. Brandon Courtney, Ja'Cory Teamer, Anthony Valencia, and Cornell Norfleet are all looking to repeat in the upcoming weekend in the Pac-12 championships. And I think this may be the most, if they all win, could be the most back-to-back champs for any one team, just because they had a lot of these guys come back. Valencia now seeking his 4th Pac-12 title, and Norfleet is looking to stay undefeated. He is just riding that wave, 13-match win streak. And speaking of teams that are riding waves and looking for another title, Campbell University is seeking their 3rd straight title in the SOCON. They won the regular season SOCON championship by defeating App State and Chattanooga, as well as staying undefeated within their conference. Only loss on the year to Virginia Tech, who is now a top 3, top 4 team. Some polls top 5, but that was their only dual meet loss. And the thing was, it was close duels with Chat and App, and each of those teams are going to put up a fight against them. You can watch this obviously on ESPN Plus, and in another segment, I did talk about how to watch every single conference championship. If you haven't checked that out, I recommend that. I have all the links to take you right there. But the last team to win 3 SOCON championships in a row was Chattanooga. From 2011 to 2015, they won their titles 5 in a row. Campbell's looking to win 3 in a row, the most since that time. Now, Campbell right now has the most number 1 seeds. Seedings just came out. Most number 1 seeds in the SOCON with 4 number 1 seeds. Campbell's entering with 3 top 20 ranked wrestlers as well, with Josh Heil, Austin Murphy, Caleb Hopkins. It's going to be exciting to see what happens there. And there's going to be so much going on in the conference championships weekend. Please, I'm interested to know which conference you're most looking forward to. I'm sure a lot of you are most looking forward to Big Tens, but I do also know that Fanco Wrestling has a large viewership from around the country. It's the number 1 most listened to wrestling podcast, college wrestling podcast on YouTube. And we're quickly growing. We're massively growing on Apple Podcasts, thanks to supporters, thanks to channel listeners, thanks to watchers like you. So I thank you for that from all around the country. But from right here in Raleigh, North Carolina, my name is Josiah, and thanks for listening to the Fanco Wrestling Show.